Turning now to the race for Attorney General. The field of contenders lining up to replace Attorney General Andrew Cuomo seems to be growing larger by the day. Earlier this week, we caught up with Manhattan Senator Eric Schneiderman, who was the first AG wannabe to formally launch his campaign. He kicked off his run on the steps of City Hall in Manhattan 2 weeks ago. The other hopefuls have made their ambitions clear, but have so far remained a little bit more reserved, apparently waiting until after Cuomo makes his gubernatorial run official, whenever that might be. The other Democratic candidates quietly running for AG include Nassau County District Attorney Kathleen Rice, Westchester Assemblyman Richard Brodsky, former Insurance Superintendent Eric Dinalo, and Attorney Sean Coffey. Former New York City Comptroller Liz Holtzman and Governor Patterson's former public safety czar Denise O'Donnell are also said to be eyeing a run. On May 1st, the Democratic Rural Conference will gather in Niagara Falls to conduct a straw poll. The results of that are considered to be a bellwether heading into the state Democratic Convention. Between now and then, we hope to catch up with all the candidates vying for the Democratic nomination for Attorney General. And tonight we're joined by Sean Coffey. He's here to discuss his campaign and also to unveil his new TV ad. Have a look.
Don't just wake up one day and say, I'm running for Attorney General. If you're Sean Coffey, you grew up in a family that struggled through hard times, but never stopped believing in better ones. You spent years as a naval officer, tough federal prosecutor, and as a lawyer who took on Wall Street on behalf of thousands of defrauded investors, holding company officers accountable by making them pay out of their own pockets.
I've tried to fight for the little guy who may have run across a tough stretch, but believes there can be justice.
So, Sean, thanks for joining us tonight.
It's good to be with you, Liz.
So let's just talk about that ad briefly. It was made, if I'm not mistaken, by Jimmy Siegel. That's Eliot Spitzer's former ad man, who is responsible for all those cinematic ads people might remember from 2006 and for turning Spitzer's anger into passion, right? That's a very interesting, it's a bio spot. It's an intro, I would assume. And is that what you're doing here? You're introducing yourself to New York?
That's right. I mean, I'm not very well known at all, and this is an effort to begin to educate people about who I am and what I'm made up of. And so Jimmy's done a great job. He's been with me since the beginning. There's a longer 7-minute biopic on our website. So this is our first foray into paid advertising.
And this is actually, you're the first candidate of all the AG contenders to be up on the air. And part of the reason why you're able to do that is because you are going to be infusing your campaign with $2 million of your own money, correct?
That's right. Well, part of the reason I'm able to do it is because I've been able to raise a lot of money. I think it's important to understand there's sort of two steps here. When I announced 6 months ago that I was looking at running, and I am in fact running for Attorney General, I wanted to demonstrate to the elected officials in the state, to the party officials, and frankly to myself and my family, that if I went out there and talked about my background, my message, what I hope to do in Albany when I'm Attorney General, could I persuade people to take a chance on a political neophyte, someone who's never run for office before? Could I persuade them to open their checkbooks and support me? And we passed that test. If you recall, in January, the first filing, I had only been running for about 2 months, and I raised $1.5 million from other people. So now, having established that my message is resonating as an outsider, as a non-career politician, as someone who's independent and committed to reform, I want to demonstrate to the same audiences, the elected officials and party officials and the voters, particularly upstate, that I'm in this to win this, and that's what we're doing.
So what you said just at the beginning of that was interesting to me, that you are running for Attorney General, because there has been some scuttlebutt that perhaps you might jump into another race. I mean, there's a lot of scuttlebutt, as you know now. You might be a neophyte, but you're certainly no stranger to the rumor mill and speculation that goes on in New York politics and politics in general. So has anyone asked you to consider running for something else?
No, and scuttlebutt is just that. Let me make it perfectly clear. I am running for Attorney General. I believe I'm going to be the next Attorney General. That's the only office I'm interested in. It's the only office I could persuade my family to support me running for. It's the office I'm best qualified to serve in. I've been a prosecutor. I've been a defense lawyer. I've been a plaintiff's lawyer. And I've also served in public, although it was in the military. So this is the job I was built to do, and I'll be very, very good at it. It's the only job I'm interested in.
So before we get to your background, and I'd like to get a little bit to your experience, particularly as a prosecutor in the WorldCom case, but before we do that, you say very definitively that you're running, and actually there's a guy who has that job right now, and he hasn't said that he's running for something else. Andrew Cuomo, have you spoken to him, and did he encourage you to do what you're doing now, to seek this statewide office to be the state's top legal eagle?
Well, I'm going to keep my conversations with Andrew Cuomo private. Let's put it this way. I met with Andrew before I decided to leave my firm and run. And that's what I'm doing. I am running for Attorney General. I know Andrew has yet to announce. Consider it the first risk of my political career, thinking that he will run for governor and that there will be a vacancy. But let me be clear: if you were to have breaking news saying that Andrew's running for re-election, I would salute smartly, return the checks, and work hard on his behalf. But the state needs him to be governor, and he's going to need a good wingman at Attorney General. And who better to reinforce what I believe will be his platform of restoring trust in government than an Annapolis graduate, a retired Navy captain, a former federal prosecutor, someone who took on powerful interests on Wall Street and taught him a lesson, and is willing to leave the comfort of private life to go help Andrew fix Albany. I think that's a message that's going to resonate, particularly upstate, where I'm getting a lot of traction. So I'm definitely in the race for Attorney General.
Yeah, I don't think you're actually probably too far out on a limb on that one. I mean, call me crazy, but you're probably pretty safe on that. But I'm just going to push you slightly. If in fact, and I know you don't want to make the conversations and the content of your conversations with Andrew Cuomo public, but if in fact he had said something to you like, Sean Coffey, you're nuts, or I don't want you in the race, and no, I would assume that you probably wouldn't have gone for it.
Let me tell you what's in my mind as opposed to what Andrew may have said. It is enough of a stretch, at least it was back in October when I announced, for someone who's never run for office to attempt to run statewide. I saw a path that was steep, narrow, and needed a little luck. Now, 6 months later, it's broader, it's flatter, and I'm further along that path than I thought I could be. It's going very, very well.
So do you think
I had no interest, but if I just could listen.
Please, sorry.
He is the most powerful and popular politician in the state, someone I really, really support. Suffice it to say, I'm not in this to angle for another job. I'm not in this because I'm bored. I'm in this to win. And to do that in the face of a headwind from Andrew Cuomo would not have been a positive thing in my mind. So you can draw your conclusions from that.
Interesting. Okay. When you say that the path has actually gotten slightly less steep, do you think, well, first of all, you have this experience as a prosecutor, but also that could, connect you to a world that some people find, besides confusing, also a little bit daunting right now. I mean, anything that has to do with Wall Street, even if it's prosecuting Wall Street, is negative. I mean, you're trying to turn this into a positive, correct? And also any work that your firm might have done with regards to the pension fund.
Okay, well, there's two different things going on. I was a federal prosecutor, an assistant United States attorney in the Southern District of New York. So that's my background as a criminal prosecutor, which is part of what the AG does. It's not everything, but it's part of. So let me turn to what I think you're talking about, which is my role as a private litigant, as someone who represented investors in cases against companies that had scandals. And I'm not running away from that. I'm embracing that. Okay, Bloomberg Markets Magazine called me Wall Street's new nemesis several years ago.
Right.
I have represented defrauded investors against Wall Street, against corporate officers who lied and misled investors. I have held them accountable. And of course, the most noteworthy case is the WorldCom case, where I took on, my team that I led took on the most powerful investment banks in the world in a case that was very, very daunting. And we recovered over $6 billion, including some of which went to New York State Common Retirement Fund because I represented them.
Right.
And in that case, for the first time in history, we made the outside directors pay personally out of their own pockets 20% of their net worth. Had never happened before. So to the extent Wall Street is an issue in this race, and it should be, because we've seen the terrible things that can happen when Wall Street runs off the rails, we need to have an Attorney General who understands Wall Street and who Wall Street respects. They respect me.